First, Nigel Farage today declared war on Ofcom over the regulator's rules that dictate broadcasters only need to give Reform UK 8% of coverage. That's despite some polls putting the party as high as 20%. Indeed, since he announced his decision to stand at the election, Farage has received a less than cosy welcome from the usual lovey media types.
The following night in Birmingham, we have yet another Question Time special, much like tonight, but it will be with the Green Party co-leader Adrian Ramsey and Reform UK's leader Nigel Farage, and that will be on at 8 o'clock. So if you want to be, well, sort of interesting noises from the audience here.
He has said that this is now a matter of national security.
Nigel Farage with his customary inflammatory language there at a Reform UK press conference.
Yeah, I mean, Sky News chose to, I think, describe him, did they, as far right? I think they also said it was a humbling experience for him when he was, assaulted by a milkshake in the street. But despite that, Reform UK has actually soared in popularity, especially among Gen Z voters. So these are the young people, aren't they? With the most recent YouGov poll putting the party at 15% among 18 to 24-year-olds. Now, Farage is by far the most popular UK politician on the social media site TikTok. I'm joined now by the Deputy Leader of Rejoin the EU, Richard Morley. Richard, look, thank you very, very much. I mean, this must be killing you inside to see that Nigel Farage is actually really popular, especially with young people.
Well, I think it's a bit of an exaggeration to say that he's very popular amongst young people. Yes, the poll suggests that he has somewhere between 12 and 15% of this Generation Z behind him. But of course, let's remember that leaves round about 80% who are not behind him. The vast majority of young people, I'm afraid, are with the Labour Party because of their policies. They may follow Nigel Farage, a small percentage of them, but I think that could be more out of amusement than actually support for him.
Is that just quite an arrogant, out-of-touch thing for you to say?
Well, you may think so, but I think that there are lots of reasons why young people will reject Nigel Farage at the ballot box. Let's face it, he's no friend to young people, is he? His measures that he wants to adopt, i.e. a complete endorsement of Brexit, which goes against the young people's wish generally that most young people want to rejoin. They want to have the opportunities to live and work in Europe as they did before. Is not exactly in tune with their thinking. The zero
I would argue that maybe his main thing is that he actually wants to try to protect the future of this country. And maybe, Richard, maybe there are an increasing number of young people now in Britain who really, really, really do not like the direction of travel in this country. And that's what he's tapping into.
Well, I'm sure they don't like the direction of travel after 14 years of this terrible Tory government. Of course they don't like the direction of travel. But that doesn't mean to say they want Nigel Farage's direction of travel either. Certainly they don't want it when it comes to his net zero abandonment ideas. Anybody who suggests that it's good for young people that Britain should abandon our drive towards restricting carbon emissions when it's their future that lies on the line, much more than ours. Young people today of Generation Z have got to live through the most unimaginable temperature rises unless we do something to stop.
Why is it, though, Richard,
net zero, which is Nigel Farage's big idea, is the biggest harm that you could possibly do to young people.
But why is it then, Richard, that the latest poll shows that Reform are on 20% of the vote, and the Lib Dems, who are the only party who've openly come out really and said if you vote for us, it's a way of paving our way back into European membership, are on about 12 or 13%.
Yeah, but I read today in the papers that a lot of people suspect that Keir Starmer's policy is going to lean much more towards Europe than what he's saying at the moment. And indeed, I suspect it will do, because economic realities will force us to look more towards Europe. And yes, readdress the treaty that we've signed with Europe over trade, because quite frankly, it doesn't benefit us at all. We've got to go back and rethink it. Brexit was extremely badly managed. Even Nigel
Farage, but you're about
to
lose your second massive vote, Richard. I mean, I get that you might not want to admit this on national television, but you were about to lose your second massive vote, aren't you? Because, you've got here Nigel Farage, Mr. Brexit, standing on the kind of ticket that you've just said there, who is potentially on course to get double the number of votes of the only other party that's saying they want to rejoin the European Union.
Yes, but you know that these opinion polls are indicators of public dissatisfaction rather than actual fact indications of what they're actually going to vote for on the day. I'm sure that when we come and see it, Reform UK is not going to get the seats that it expects to.
Well, I think
the Conservatives are not going to do as badly as everybody thinks they're going to do, and they will remain the opposition. It won't be Nigel Farage who will be the opposition, it will be the leader of the Conservative Party, whoever that will be.
OK, yeah, I think it's in terms of just a pure number of votes. I mean, the way our voting system is here, absolutely. I mean, on that as well, presumably, you're probably in favour of some kind of electoral reform, are you? I don't know whether that's PR or whatever it like. But also, you've got Nigel Farage now standing in this country. If we were to do what the Liberal Democrats did at the moment, we would be walking back into a European Union that I dare say you would describe as far right, would you?
Well, I mean, all countries go through political ups and downs in terms of left and right. Yes, there is a current movement in some countries in Europe towards the right, and I can see that will may progress to others. But it's not a permanent move. It's a reaction against the crisis that we face at this moment, both internationally and in terms of the climate change problems that we have. I'm quite certain that this
it's a reaction to the
right
illegal migrant crisis, Richard. That's what it is, isn't it? It's a reaction to the illegal migrant crisis. That's why people voted that way on continental Europe, and that's why people really want to vote for Nigel Farage, isn't it? And I don't know if maybe you want to do that much about the illegal migrant crisis, do you?
No, I do agree with you. There has been an enormous concern amongst the general public about illegal migrants. Of course, this has stimulated a great feeling of crisis and therefore stimulated the votes towards the right-wing parties who have methods of dealing with it which are perhaps stronger than the left-wing parties. That's quite possible. However, whether or not they can actually solve it is another issue. There has been no successful solution to the migrant crisis.
Because unfortunately, people of your political persuasion tend to try to do everything they possibly can to scupper that, don't they, Richard? That's part of the issue, I think. But look, we are going to have to leave it there, I'm afraid. As Richard Morley there is the deputy leader of Rejoin the EU